Hey Reddit. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. I've been lurking here for a while, never thought I'd be posting my own story, but here we are. I guess I'm looking for clarity, or maybe just a place to let it out. I've been married to my wife, Lisa, for 7 years, together for 10. We've had a pretty normal relationship. Not perfect, of course, a couple arguments about finances, a rough patch when we were trying to get pregnant, unsuccessfully, but that's another story. But overall, I thought we were solid. Things started feeling off a few weeks before her high school reunion. It was her 15th year, and she was oddly excited. Like, weirdly hyped for it. Buying new clothes, getting her nails and hair done, asking if she looked too married, which she brushed off as a joke when I raised an eyebrow. I even remember her asking, "Do you think people will think I've let myself go?" No. You're beautiful and you're married. Who are you trying to impress? It wasn't just the prep, either. She started locking her phone. She always kept it unlocked before, we never had secrets like that. I chalked it up to work stuff. She manages a small marketing team, and didn't press too hard, because she said she was under a lot of stress. She went to the reunion alone. I couldn't make it because of work, a quarterly deadline had me buried. She didn't seem too disappointed. She even said, "You'd be bored anyway," with a shrug. It stung a little, but again, I let it slide. Hindsight is cruel. She stayed overnight at a hotel with a few girlfriends from high school. At least, that's what she said. I didn't question it. Why would I? I trusted her. When she came back the next morning, she was different. Hungover, definitely. But also strangely quiet. Distant. Like she had something to say but didn't want to. I asked how it went, and she said, "Oh, it was fun. Same old drama, same old people. No pictures. No funny stories." She just moved on like it hadn't been a big deal. That was the first time I felt it, the twisting in your gut when something's wrong and your brain can't explain it yet. I ignored it. That's where this mess begins. Alright, so picking up where I left off. About a week after the reunion, I was doing some laundry while Lisa was in the shower. We both usually throw our stuff into the same hamper, so I was pulling her clothes out to separate the delicates. I reached into the pocket of the dress she wore to the reunion, a new one she had bought just for the event, and I felt a crumpled receipt. Didn't think much of it. I unfolded it, expecting it to be for some overpriced cocktail or room service snack. It wasn't. It was a hotel receipt. For 1 room. 1 king bed. Charged to her card. The check-in and check-out times were exact to the hours she said she was out with her girlfriends. Now, I'm not dumb. I tried to rationalize it, maybe her friends bailed and she took a room alone? Maybe the other girls split off and she didn't want to drive? But then I looked at the name of the hotel, not the one she mentioned. She had said they stayed at the Hilton Garden Inn. This was a boutique place downtown. More romantic, more intimate. I stood there, holding the damn receipt, heart thudding like I had just sprinted a mile. You ever have that moment where your whole reality shifts just a little? Like your brain knows what's happening before you let it register? She walked out of the bathroom while I was still holding it. "What's that?" she asked casually, towel around her, brushing her wet hair. I didn't even say anything. Just handed it to her. She glanced at it, froze, and for a split second, I swear to you, I saw panic flicker across her face. Then, like flipping a switch, she smirked and said, "Oh, that? That's nothing. I just needed some alone time after the party." Alone time? With a king bed? I didn't buy it. But I didn't explode. I just nodded and walked away. I went downstairs, sat on the couch, and felt my entire world wobble. That's when I decided I had to find out the truth, no matter how bad it hurt. So yeah, I didn't sleep that night. While she was snoring beside me like nothing had happened, I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Every word she said, every shift in her tone, the smug way she brushed off the hotel receipt like I was the idiot for even questioning it. The next morning, I had already made up my mind. I needed more than just suspicion. So, I started digging. Now, I'm not some tech genius, but I know my way around her phone. We don't have secrets, or so I thought, and she never changed her passcode. I waited until she went to the store and then went through it. First stop? Messages. She had deleted all her texts with anyone that had a first name and a last initial, classic cheater formatting. But one thread caught my eye, Dan H. I remembered her telling me about him, a guy she'd barely talked to in high school. Apparently, they were in the same homeroom and that was it. Yeah. Right. Nothing explicit in the messages. Just lots of "miss you already red heart," and "last night was amazing." But what really got me? A selfie. One of those dumb, filtered ones where she was lying in bed, hair messy, makeup smeared. Timestamped the morning after the reunion. And there he was. Half naked, asleep in the background. I felt physically sick. So, I waited until she got home. I didn't want to text. I didn't want to call her out in public. I wanted to look her in the eye. She walked in with a bag of groceries like nothing had happened. I didn't even say hi. I pulled up the selfie on her phone and held it out. "What's this?" She went pale. For the first time in our relationship, she didn't have a snappy answer. No sarcasm. No eye-rolling. Just silence. Then she snapped back, grabbing the phone from my hand. "You went through my phone? Seriously?" That's what she latched onto. Not the cheating. Not the betrayal. Just the fact that I had violated her privacy. I said, "Don't deflect. Who is he? And how long has this been going on?" And then, she laughed. "I knew you'd overreact. It was just one night. A stupid, drunk mistake. I didn't even want to go to that reunion. Like that was supposed to make it better." I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just looked at her, the woman I thought I was building a life with, and felt empty. She kept rambling, how it didn't mean anything, how it was just nostalgia, how I hadn't been fun lately. I didn't even respond. I just got up, grabbed my keys, and left. That was the day I knew things weren't just cracked, they were shattered. You'd think finding out your wife cheated on you would bring a tidal wave of anger. Maybe a screaming match. Something dramatic, right? But honestly? It was more like a numb silence. Like someone had pulled the plug on my emotions. After I walked out, I just drove around for hours. No destination, no music, just silence, and the sound of my own thoughts screaming inside my skull. The weirdest thing was how quickly my mind spiraled, not just about the cheating, but everything. Was our whole relationship a lie? Did she ever really love me? Did I miss something so obvious that it made me look like a complete fool? I started thinking about all the moments that seemed normal at the time, the way she used to pick fights over nothing, her increasing girls' nights, the constant eye rolls when I talked about work or tried to plan something together. I thought we were in a rough patch. Every couple hits one, right? Turns out, I was just being slowly replaced. What hit the hardest though, was the betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional. The way she spoke to him in that selfie caption, the "miss you already red heart" crap. That's the kind of thing she used to say to me when we were still dating. Before we got married. Before we got boring, apparently. It was like she gave someone else all the best parts of her, and all I got was the cold leftover version. I didn't cry that night. I couldn't. I wanted to, it felt like there should have been tears. But all I felt was hollow. And then came the embarrassment. How do you tell your friends that your wife cheated on you with some washed-up high school fling? How do you tell your family? Worse, how do you look your own reflection in the mirror and not feel like you failed? That you weren't good enough? I didn't go home that night. I crashed on my buddy Matt's couch. I didn't tell him everything yet. Just said we had a fight. I couldn't bring myself to say it out loud, not yet. Saying it made it real. It was the longest night of my life. And in the morning, reality hit me square in the chest. I had to make a choice. Stay and try to fix something shattered, or start walking away from a life I thought was solid. That choice is where the next part begins. Want to hear what happened when I went back? Because trust me, she didn't make it easy. So, after a night of zero sleep and way too much overthinking on my buddy Matt's couch, I decided I needed to confront everything properly this time. Not just the cheating. The lies. The disrespect. The whole damn picture. I went home mid-morning. She was there. Acting like nothing happened. She even had the audacity to ask, "Where did you go last night?" That flipped a switch in me. I told her flat out, "I know. I saw the texts. I saw the photo. I know everything." Her face. Wow. That was a moment. Shock? Guilt? Embarrassment? It flickered through her like a strobe light. But then came the classic defense mode. "You're overreacting. Nothing happened. It was just texting, I was drunk, it didn't mean anything." But the more she talked, the more it unraveled. She didn't know I saw the selfie. She thought I had just read some flirtatious messages. When I brought up the hotel receipt that she left in her bag, found that while she was in the shower the other week, forgot about it until everything clicked, she went pale. Then she turned nasty. "You never paid attention to me. You were always working." I needed to feel wanted. There it was. The victim card. She was trying to turn her betrayal into something I caused. I told her I was done. That I couldn't and wouldn't compete with some fantasy version of her old high school years or play therapist while she figured out who she wanted to be. That's when she snapped. Said I was throwing away our marriage, that I was too sensitive, and that I needed to grow up. I packed a bag and walked out. Matt let me crash again, but this time, I told him everything. And you know what he said? "Man, I always got weird vibes from her." Thanks, Matt. Real helpful. The next few days were chaos. She called. A lot. Sometimes apologizing. Sometimes yelling. Sometimes crying. One minute she wanted me back, the next she was blaming me again. Classic emotional whiplash. I talked to a divorce lawyer. Quietly. I needed to know my options before I made anything official. Especially because we were still living in the same house, technically. Joint savings. Shared bills. The whole entanglement. But deep down, I already knew the decision. I couldn't stay. Not after this. It wasn't just the affair. It was everything around it, the deception, the emotional manipulation, the way she weaponized blame every time I showed a feeling. The woman I married wasn't the woman who cheated. Or maybe she was, and I just didn't see it until now. The only thing left was the exit strategy. And it was about to get even messier. Because guess who decided to text me out of the blue? Her old high school fling. The guy she cheated with. And man, he had a story to tell. Alright, so buckle up, because this next part was straight out of a bad soap opera. I was still reeling from the mess, staying at Matt's place, when I got a message on Facebook from some guy named Shanar. I didn't recognize the name at first, but then it clicked, he was the guy from the reunion. The one I saw in the selfie. The guy she just bumped into. Yeah, that's Shane. The message? "Hey man, I didn't know she was married when we hooked up. I feel like crap. Just thought you should know the full story. You ever just stare at your phone like it slapped you in the face?" I messaged him back, keeping it cool, just asking what he meant by full story. He responded almost instantly. Dude was obviously carrying guilt. And that's when he told me, they'd been talking for weeks before the reunion. She slid into his DMs first after they reconnected in a class Facebook group. Started innocent, then turned flirty, then straight up sexual. He sent screenshots. Dates, times, messages. She told him our marriage was basically over, that I had no idea how to treat a woman, and that she was finally free at the reunion. They went back to her hotel room after dinner. Spent the night. He left early before anyone would notice. Oh, and get this, he didn't even want to stay in contact afterward. She tried to message him the next day, and he ghosted her. So not only did she cheat, lie, and gaslight me, but she got played by the very guy she thought was worth throwing our marriage away for. I wish I could say I felt triumphant reading that. Like some sort of gotcha moment. But honestly? It just made me feel worse. I didn't even realize how long I sat there staring at those screenshots. I forwarded them to myself, then closed the chat. Didn't respond. What was I gonna say? Thanks for screwing my wife and then growing a conscience? Nah. But it did solidify one thing, I was absolutely done. I wasn't dealing with someone who made a mistake. I was dealing with someone who orchestrated her betrayal and tried to cover it up with manipulation and lies. I called the lawyer the next day and told them I wanted to proceed. And when I finally confronted her with Shane's messages, her face drained of all color. But what came out of her mouth? Another lie. Oh, he's lying. He's obsessed with me. He must have faked those. Girl. Please. I showed her the screenshots. She tried to grab my phone out of my hand. I laughed. Like actually laughed, first time in weeks. Not because it was funny. Because I realized how pathetic her game had become. And that was the moment the weight started lifting. One chapter was closing. And the next was about to begin. So after I showed her the screenshots from Shane, and she tried that week he must have faked those, defense, I honestly didn't even have it in me to yell anymore. I just looked at her. Really looked at her. It was like I was finally seeing her clearly, not the woman I married, but who she actually was. A compulsive liar. A manipulator. Someone who'd burn everything down just to feel wanted for 5 minutes. She stood there in our kitchen, arms crossed, trying to act like I was overreacting. You know what, she said. Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of your job, I wouldn't have had to find validation somewhere else. There it was. The classic blame shift. I've read about it on Reddit. I've seen other people talk about it. But hearing it in real life? When it's your wife, the one you trusted most, trying to rewrite reality like you made her cheat? That was a special kind of soul punch. I didn't engage. I just told her I had already called the lawyer, and we'd be moving forward with the divorce. She went quiet. No apology. No breakdown. Just cold silence. Then, finally, the mask slipped a little. You're really gonna throw everything away over one mistake? One mistake? It was a calculated affair with an old classmate, after weeks of messaging, while I was at home trying to fix our damn marriage. That's not a mistake. That's a campaign. I told her she had until the end of the week to figure out where she was going. The lease was in my name, and she could either make this civil or drag it out and have me pull every receipt I had into court. Spoiler, she packed her bags and went to stay with a friend. Or at least that's what she told me. Wanna know the kicker? Later, I found out she tried to meet up with Shane again after everything, but he ghosted her again. Apparently, he blocked her this time. Guess the thrill was gone once the secret was out. I could have been petty. I could have blown up her world publicly, blasted the screenshots to friends, family, social media. But I didn't. I realized I was finally free. The lies. The gaslighting. The walking on eggshells energy. All gone. It was just me, some peace and quiet, and a weird sense of relief. Alright, so the first few weeks after everything blew up were, frankly, brutal. The anger, the sadness, the constant why didn't I see this coming loops, they hit hard. But I knew I had to start focusing on moving forward, for my own sanity. So, I did what I could to begin rebuilding my life. First thing I did was cut off all contact with her. I didn't want to go down the let's still be friends path. That would have been a disaster, and honestly, it felt better just knowing she was out of the house. I didn't have to deal with her manipulative comments anymore. It was a strange kind of peace, not having someone around who made me second-guess my own thoughts all the time. As for the divorce, I've got to say, getting a lawyer was probably the best decision I made. We worked out a fair settlement. I didn't want to drag things through the mud, especially since we didn't have kids. It was better to just let it end cleanly. She ended up taking most of the furniture, which I was honestly fine with. I didn't want anything that reminded me of her. It was like shedding skin, getting rid of everything that once felt like home. I took a bit of time for myself. I know that sounds cliché, but I started doing things I hadn't done in a long time. I started hitting the gym again, something I'd let slip because I'd been so focused on trying to fix our marriage. I finally went out to meet friends I'd neglected. I took solo trips to places I'd wanted to visit but never did. The world felt huge again. I felt like I was rediscovering who I was without her. But, of course, there were moments where the weight of everything hit me. I'd see couples on the street, and it would sting. I'd catch myself thinking about the what-ifs. What if I had caught on sooner? What if she hadn't done this to me? It took time, but I learned to stop those thoughts from spiraling. I accepted that it wasn't my fault. I wasn't the one who lied, who cheated, who betrayed trust. I found myself talking to a therapist, someone I should have seen years ago, honestly. It was so helpful to just vent, to say everything I'd been holding in. It wasn't just about the affair, it was about everything. The things I'd ignored, the things I'd allowed to slide because I was trying to be the good husband. I had to learn how to stop making excuses for people's bad behavior. But the best part? The part that made me feel like I was truly moving forward? I stopped missing her. At first, I thought I would. She'd been my life partner for a while. But once she was out of the picture, and I wasn't constantly wondering if she was lying to me, I realized I'd been holding on to a version of her that never really existed. That woman, the one I'd built in my mind? She was gone. And the person who betrayed me was the one standing in front of me all along. That was the breakthrough. And I have to say, it felt good. Up next, let's talk about what happened when I started dating again and the surprising things I learned about myself. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if I was ever going to want to date again. After what I went through, the idea of opening myself up to someone else seemed impossible. But after a while, I realized that I needed to start living again. And part of that meant allowing myself to trust again, even if it was just a little. I didn't dive straight into dating. I took things slow. I started talking to women here and there, going on a few casual dates just to test the waters. But honestly, I was terrified. What if I fell for someone else and they turned out to be just like my ex? What if I couldn't trust them? What if I was the problem? It wasn't easy. The first couple of dates were awkward as hell. I'd find myself zoning out, thinking about the mess I'd been through. But the more I dated, the more I learned to relax and just enjoy the moment. I also learned a lot about myself, things I never really paid attention to before. For one, I realized how much I'd sacrificed in my marriage. I'd put my own needs on the back burner for years, always prioritizing what my wife wanted or needed. I had forgotten what it felt like to make decisions based on my happiness. Going out on dates, even if they were just for fun, reminded me that I had a life worth living, a life that wasn't centered around someone else's actions or decisions. The first time I went on a date with a woman who actually seemed genuinely interested in me, I almost freaked out. I hadn't felt that kind of attention in so long. It was exhilarating, but also terrifying. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the inevitable betrayal moment. But it never came. I learned something about myself on that date. I had been so focused on the idea of avoiding pain that I'd stopped enjoying the good things in life. It took me a long time to realize that being happy wasn't about making sure nothing went wrong. It was about living fully, despite the inevitable bumps along the way. Of course, I wasn't looking for a serious relationship right off the bat. I wasn't ready for that. But there was a definite shift. I could see myself in a healthy relationship again, one built on trust, communication, and mutual respect. But here's the thing, I had changed. The man who walked out of that marriage wasn't the same guy who entered it. I was no longer willing to settle for someone who would lie, cheat, or manipulate me. I was stronger, more self-aware, and far more cautious about who I allowed into my life. I ended up going on more dates, meeting some great women, and having some honestly wonderful conversations. But I didn't rush anything. I realized I didn't need to dive straight into something serious. I was rediscovering myself, and that was enough for me. But dating again wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There were still moments where I was reminded of my ex, moments where I caught myself comparing new people to her. It's hard to shake off the scars someone leaves, even when you know you're better off without them. But little by little, I learned to appreciate the present, without always looking over my shoulder. It was also a bit weird to think that my ex-wife, the one who had been so manipulative and deceitful, might eventually find someone else, too. It didn't matter to me as much anymore, but there was a part of me that felt a tiny bit of satisfaction in knowing she would have to deal with her own consequences, too. It's been a while since the whole mess with my ex, and I can honestly say I'm in a better place now. It's been a long road, and I've had my fair share of ups and downs. But one thing I know for sure, I'm no longer living in the shadow of the past. The emotional weight of my marriage, my ex's betrayal, and all that drama isn't ruling my life anymore. I've learned to breathe again, to laugh again, and to live for myself. I'm still figuring out how I want my future to look, but I know this much: I'm not settling for less than what I deserve. The confidence I've gained from facing that betrayal head-on and surviving it has been invaluable. It's made me realize how much I'm capable of, and how much strength I have within me. Looking back on everything, I realize just how much I've learned. I'm more aware of what's important to me now: honesty, respect, and emotional support. I can't believe how much I ignored those things when I was with my ex, but I guess I thought it was just part of a normal relationship. I can see now how much damage I allowed her to do to my self-esteem, and I can't believe I stayed in it as long as I did. As for the whole dating thing, it's still a work in progress. I've had a few casual relationships, but I'm not rushing anything serious. Honestly, I'm just enjoying the idea of me for the first time in years. I'm rediscovering my passions, reconnecting with friends, and just enjoying the peace that comes with knowing I'm free from the drama of my marriage. I've also realized that I don't need to be angry anymore. At first, the anger was my fuel, the thing that helped me get through the worst of it. But over time, I realized that holding on to that anger was just a way of letting my ex continue to control my emotions. It's been freeing to let go of that and start focusing on what I can control. One thing I've learned from this experience is that healing takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. Some days I feel great, and others, I have moments of doubt. It's all part of the process. The important thing is to be patient with myself and trust that I'll come out of this stronger than before. If you're going through something similar, being betrayed, lied to, or feeling like you've lost yourself in a relationship, my advice is simple: take it one day at a time. Don't rush the healing process. Be kind to yourself. It's easy to get caught up in the anger or sadness, but eventually, you'll reach a point where you can look back and say, I'm better off without that. Trust yourself. You'll be okay. As for me, I'm continuing my journey. I don't know where it'll take me yet, but I know that I'm in control now. And for the first time in a long while, that feels pretty damn good.